Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar, The Frictionless Manager, how to drive recognition or any engagement program without adding another tool to your browser. So we're going to talk about how to incorporate engagement programs like Recognize into your workflow, make them part of your organization, and learn more about each other along the way. In fact, I'd love to get everyone in the chat sharing where are you calling in from, maybe what industry you're part of. That really helps to shape the calls. These are live, so let's take advantage of that. So again, we're here to talk about engaging managers, not adding more tools to their browser, and making so that engagement programs are really successful. So thanks everyone for joining in from San Diego, Florida. I'm here in Seattle. My heart goes out to everyone who's in the heat. We are in a cold front. It's the strangest weather. It's really cold here in Seattle. So my heart goes out to Europe and to the East Coast. It looks like we have some people coming in from Bangladesh, which is awesome. Philadelphia, Atlanta, Florida again. Really cool. Portland. I just feel like, yeah, the Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, we're kind of this like these sister cities. So what's up? What's up, Portland? I see California, Pennsylvania, Indiana. So awesome to see everyone in here. We have now over 40 people in the room here. So let's connect with people, right? If you see someone in your area or in your industry, like Erica is in property management, Elena is in construction, connect with people, right? We are all here together for a reason. And so again, hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you're in HR, if you're in people ops, you're in the session here for probably the same reason, right? You want it, and you've seen a common pattern. We put a lot of effort into our engagement programs, and then they fall flat 6 months later. What we found is that managers can be the linchpin for engagement program longevity. So we're going to talk about that today. So I think we all know that managers, they're not failing at recognition or these other engagement programs because they don't care. I think they care deeply, but they're frankly overwhelmed. They are overwhelmed by notifications and tool fatigue. So today we're going to talk about this problem and what we can do about it. And we're going to look at how we can turn employee recognition into organic weekly pattern for the long haul. So a little bit about me first, just to understand the context of who I am and why I'm obsessed with this stuff. My background is in actually a mix of cognitive psychology and web technology. And I've spent years designing web experiences for large companies like Uber and Target. They were obsessed with their user experience. And it's so important that things are as simple as possible so that you have the best flow, right? Get out of the way of your customers. So when I co-founded Recognize, I wanted to take those same principles into employee recognition and rewards. And so, I just believe that we can use technology to scale culture and productivity for wherever people work. So today I'm going to go over a handful of things, mostly around how we can tie new ideas or concepts into existing habits and existing tools. I'm going to talk about how we can tie it to things that you are already doing inside your company, core KPIs across departments. And I'll give you some examples of what success looks like with a recognition program. And we're going to be sending these slides after the call too. So everyone's going to get a chance to have this. And hopefully you can share it with your leaders to convince them to create a recognition program if you don't already have one. So before we get into some of the solutions, I think just talking about the backdrop of what we're facing is a good starting point so that we can kind of get a sense of where we can go from here. But right now, as it stands, the voluntary turnover rate in the US is around 36%. It's been like that for a long time. So that's a lot of recruiting, onboarding, and lost knowledge. And I feel like almost it's like learned helplessness at this point that we're just like hands up, we don't know what to do about it. So it's just how it is. But when you ask people why they're leaving, massive 40% say they are actively would walk away from a job if they don't feel valued. And when you ask people why they feel unmotivated, one of the top three answers is feeling invisible or undervalued, having a bad relationship with their manager, or general lack of recognition. So this problem isn't just a warm and fuzzy culture issue. It directly hits the bottom line. And this is why leaders should care about this. For instance, if a third of your team feels invisible, then they already have one foot out the door. And I think a lot of people in this current climate with layoffs, there was overhiring during COVID. Now people are facing layoffs. It's harder to get a job than ever. So there's a lot more quiet quitting. There's people who are still at your organization, but they're simply disengaged. And that invisibility, not only leads to quiet quitting, but leads to burnout. So right now, about 76% of employees experience burnout on their job, at least at some point in the last year. When someone is chronically burned out, they are 2.5 times more likely to actively look for a new job. But here's where we have an opportunity as HR leaders. But the data shows that when organizations build high quality recognition cultures, employees are 73% less likely to experience ongoing or frequent burnout and 21% less likely to suffer from chronic stress. And we've actually replicated some of these studies as well in our team. So just a simple, timely thank you. It's not just being nice, it's a shield against the chronic stress that some of your population is experiencing right now. So, how do we go about fixing this? One thing that we can do is one thing that we currently do is that we'll, buy software, build software, hire outside consultants to try to help with, various things like surveys or performance reviews, pulse survey software. We're always looking at new possibilities, and the HR tech world is continuing to expand. While a lot of these things have good intentions, the average employee is now switching between, I couldn't believe it when I learned this, that 1,100 times a day switching between different applications or tabs. And that constant context switching is wasting, I was blown away by this, 32 days of productivity per employee per year. So 30% of your employees would tell you that tool fatigue is killing their productivity. When a busy manager has to open a new tab to create another password or log into a standalone HR portal just to say, congrats on a project in a recognition program, we're setting them up all to fail. And the friction is simply too high. The employee experience, that concept really is about what kind of tools they're using. And at this point, I think in the knowledge worker space, I definitely think trying to reduce those app switches is critical. So what I've been talking about here is that talent feels invisible. It's leading to burnout. At the same time, we're faced with tool fatigue. So the last thing that a busy manager wants to do is one more thing that HR wants them to do, or another HR administrative task. So of course, I think we all understand that. So managers are often busy, focused on deliverables, deadlines, and their team's performance. So if they ask them to log into another system to say thank you, I think it's rarely going to get done consistently. But if it does get done consistently, you're going to have a really awesome program for the long haul. So that's why we want to focus on managers. What we want to do is we want to reframe recognition entirely. So instead of thinking of it as a recognition, attaboy, kudos program, right? We want to actually think of it as a natural way in the manager's workflow for them to log and track the wins of their team's achievements every week. We call this win logging, and it's to capture those natural moments of success, big and small as they happen. This will then make the manager look better because then they'll show all the recognitions that are occurring, all the great wins that are occurring in their team. And then we can also position it as being part of the one-on-ones and performance reviews without having to dig through emails and data to try to remember what these people have done, right? You can just go and recognize, you can just click a button, get an AI summary of the recognitions for the last 6 months. So again, if we can then also frame the habit as a weekly habit and have it in the tools they're using, then we're going to see even more adoption as well. So thinking about exactly what that equation looks like, I think it's nice to actually put it into math. If you're a math person, this is how I like to think about it. It's actually quite simple. So what is the likelihood? What is the actual likelihood of someone that will send a recognition? And it's basically just taking the motivation of the manager times that employee's visibility. So the more visible, the more likely they are to be recognized. And then also then divided by the friction of the system, and that is a big factor. If you can't remember where to go or the website to plug in, I mean, a lot of employees can't even remember what their company values are, let alone trying to remember how to send a recognition. So yeah, I wanted to come back. Actually, I wanted to mention a stat here that about friction. If the friction is high, like there's separate logins, manual forms, etc., the likelihood of a manager to actually send a recognition goes to zero, almost zero. In fact, 23% of managers strongly agree that their company actually gives them proper tools to recognize their colleagues, right? So if you're able to have that be 50, 60, 70% of your managers saying that they strongly agree that your company gives them easy tools to recognize their employees, then you're going to have a much stronger recognition program. And then everyone's going to know the company values, and everyone's going to be more motivated, and there's going to be less burnout. All these amazing things will be connected. So, where is the main friction coming from? As we saw, if it's a separate tool, you're going to see crickets in your recognition strategy. And so when we look at those charts, it's not that our managers don't care, to kind of harp back on that, but that they actually are finding they're struggling on how to actually give out that praise. They're busy as managers fighting fires, running stand-ups. They're managing client relationships and emergencies. So if recognition is a destination, I'm going to say this one more time, then it is just not going to happen. It's going to be pushed to the bottom of their to-do list. So I think we have our first poll. I'd be curious to see what you all think about this. Questions, pull it up. Jane, are you going to pull the poll up? Awesome. So as far as your HR SaaS situation, what do you feel is a problem with your tool set, right? In those 1,100 context switches within those tools, what kind of problems are you finding the worst? Just a single choice. Okay, I kind of crossed the board a little bit. Let's see, we have 30% of people saying that too many tools. Oops. Let's see, 24% tools not integrated together. I'm taking a screenshot of this. 19% lack of internal communication on the tools. And then, yeah, pretty similar across the board. Interesting to see that training. I think a lot of tools now are kind of just is easier to use than ever. So training is less important. But with recognition, what is effective recognition? What does that look like? I think a one-time training, we offer that to our customers every week. We train managers and employees. What does good recognition look like? I think that's where that comes up. Or, yes, I think everyone knows how to navigate Jira to submit a ticket, but what does a good ticket look like, right? But that was interesting across the board that people feel tools are not integrated, or just too many in general. So, we'll talk more about this in this session. It's really interesting. So, what do we see as a solution to all this? We believe that's to meet the employees where they already are. So, for instance, Microsoft Teams has over 300 million active users. If you're a Slack company, I think the numbers are similar there as well. We are now Microsoft Teams and Slack are your digital headquarters. It's the first thing that people open in the morning, and it's probably the last thing they close at night. They're already running their stand-ups, sharing project updates, collaborating all within Slack and Teams. So if your workforce is already working there, then let's put those maybe somewhat seem like optional things like recognition, those HR tasks, put them right into the tools they're already using by embedding Recognize into that workspace. You're going to now turn recognition from just a chore to something that actually can happen on a weekly basis. So a little bit about what we do, and I think there's other choices out there, but we've always been dedicated to being integrated. We were lucky to be in San Francisco in the same building as Yammer, which became Viva Engage, and that's how we got our start, is by tying our recognition platform, best-in-class recognition, into things people are already doing. So that's kind of the magic of having a kind of unified system like Microsoft 365 or an ecosystem like Slack. You're not buying another standalone tool or being forced to use a jack of all trades solution that might be already, let's say, in Workday or Microsoft Teams. You can do both. You can have best-in-class solutions when they are integrated into your solution. So my platform, Recognize, acts as that cultural layer that integrates seamlessly across all the 5 core Microsoft 365 products. Teams, Outlook, SharePoint, Viva Engage, Azure. But we also are in Slack. Some companies use both, but usually they pick one. But by having one unified experience, now the employees can be focused, engaged, and connected. So just a couple examples, by putting Recognize or your recognition tool right into Teams as that icon. What's awesome on Microsoft Teams is you can be on the mobile app, you can be on the desktop, and you don't have to download anything or remember to go to a website. It's just there. And that can be true for your other programs too. I hope that you're already doing those. If you're doing any kind of third-party integrations into Microsoft Teams, feel free to share in the chat. What things are you proud of? What has been a win around connecting things into maybe existing tools? Maybe it's also SharePoint. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But what we do is we embed the recognitions into your channel tab so people can see that live stream of recognitions, anniversaries. We also can connect to Power Automate through webhooks to create multiple tools happening automatically together with no human intervention. And then also, like I said, that icon I already mentioned. So let me just show you what that looks like for a second. So here's Microsoft Teams. Here is a channel called Recognitions. Of course, you can have, if you're an international company, different locations can see just their recognitions, right? So it's focused on who they are. But here's an example of an anniversary, a birthday rather, a recognition around customer focus, teamwork, and then also that tab here. That will be on the mobile app, but also on the desktop. And from here, the employees can go and redeem rewards for things like gift cards, right? Or they can send a recognition to a colleague, or view all the recognitions that are happening in the company, all without having to leave Microsoft Teams. And this is true also for the managers. They have a dashboard. The company admins have a dashboard, and then they can run reports on their direct reports as well as other people. So, for instance, I can go and run, what are the recognitions occurring this year? Summary of Catherine, for instance, in this test account. Just analyze all the recognitions she received in the last year. So what's really cool about Microsoft Teams is the fact that you can run surveys and rewards and Hall of Fame without having to feel like you're using another piece of software. And even though ultimately you are, right? You're using specialized software to meet your needs. Now, I think it's very true that managers really do still live in their inbox. And so that's why we covered that as well, by putting Recognize inside of Outlook. I think we were the first one to do that. So here's Outlook, for instance. Of course, we are notifying managers every week of someone that they need to be recognizing. There's Catherine that we just saw a moment ago. Reminding this manager either through a mobile notification or an email. But then there's Recognize in the toolbar within Outlook. And then again, I can come in and I can view the recognitions. I can go ahead and redeem. We just added live events, so redeeming sporting events, concerts, things like that. So the point here is you see greatness, you then just click recognize within Outlook, and now you send the recognition and you hand out points. Points allow for international currency that then can be used to buy swag or gift cards or experiences or Amazon. And it just makes it so much more accessible because that icon there is everywhere that people work. Another example is SharePoint, also Viva Engage. You know, SharePoint's been around for so long, but it's in some ways one of the best choices still because of how customizable it is as an intranet for your company. And so, you know, we did the same thing. We put Recognize as a native SharePoint web part that can be embedded in your intranet landing page as a full feed, full screen feed, or as a side panel for rewards. So I'll just go ahead and give a quick show what that looks like. So if I'm in SharePoint, there is my recognition program. Here I can send a recognition around respect or customer focus to my colleagues, and I can assign points to that and so forth. So I'm not having to even know that there is a separate website for this. Of course, it's great to get on the mobile app. It's great to have, know that there is a website, but you don't have to. You don't have to ever go to our website to take advantage of Recognize, and a lot of people on our platform never do. So, SharePoint becomes that continuous social billboard, reinforcing what great work looks like because it's all tailored around your company values. And this is great for large, distributed, remote teams where that social connection really is everything. And that's why integration into Viva Engage is awesome too. So just a quick look at that, where we're posting recognitions to Viva Engage. So instead of a unmonitored phrase tool or something like that, it's really the tools you're using. I see a question from Erica about Google Workspace. So we have a Google Chrome extension is what and then you can log in via Google with Recognize too. So that's what we've done for Google is that Chrome extension. So it's in Chrome. I know Google companies are obsessed with Chrome. And then also you can log in for the first time with Google and then you don't have to log in again. And we're happy to reach out to you on our team more. Actually, I was going to touch on in just a second. I'll touch on how we're doing live demos. Erica may want to come to that. And I'm going to mention that in the next slide. I can see my preview. But again, I'm just trying to point out that when a recognition happens, let's say on a mobile app, it then is broadcasted to Teams, Viva Engage, and it's broadcasted to Slack, etc. So I'm going to touch on this at the very end, but I realize that sometimes by only mentioning this at the end, some people may miss it. But we do a live demo of what I'm showing you here. A lot of the webinars, if you go to our website, look at the webinars, very few of them really do show Recognize. I'm showing Recognize more than ever in this session. But if you want to get a deep dive of Recognize, we do it as a group. My team, David and Jess will be there. They actually give out a $100 gift card to somebody who comes to that session, which is incredible. Your odds of getting a $100 gift card are actually quite high. And we do that because we want you to come see and take a look at what's possible. I don't think people realize that there even is a real industry around recognition, and that by doing it, again, you can have more motivated workplace, better culture, and be able to promote the company values. So please come to that session. But let's keep going here. I want to touch on something else around recognition that is really important, that helps recognition go beyond just saying a good job. So in our platform, what we've built is a custom badges system that are around your values from the ground up. And so again, these are in the form of badges, and you can tailor these badges to a specific, titles, roles, permissions, the graphic that you choose. Here's examples on the screen here of what we've built. But you can change all that, and you can change limits. You can make it require approval from a manager. And by having at the badge level, you can have a really unique program where your IT department has their own set of program. Your sales company organization has another program as well. So this turns abstract values into daily trackable habits. And when managers send a badge, they're telling the employee and the company exactly what culture values are driving success. You can have actual quantitative data on your values. And if your executives ever wonder, the need for this, show them how few people actually know the company values. Do a survey or just ask someone in the hallway, what are the company values? Oh, let's see, integrity, right? So if we're going to go through the effort of having values, which is so critical in every business book, it says, have company values, make them your own. That's why we got to go beyond the value of integrity or innovation. And then make them be living and breathing parts of your organization through the recognition program. So this is also a really great idea. So yes, we can take the company badges, the company values, but we can go further by tying them to specific real world business objectives. So think about designing a wellness program where employees earn points for walking, biking, meditating, or a safety program on the manufacturing floor where frontline workers or your construction workers from someone earlier, where we're recognizing people for following the safety protocols and maintaining incident-free periods. You can run sales bonus programs mapped to CRM triggers or reward community volunteering. This turns recognition into a practical incentive engine that actively supports your company's strategic goals. So this is a killer strategy for your recognition program to live into the future. Now, of course, points are only motivating if there's rewards tied to it or some kind of result tied to the points. A lot of companies take advantage of SAPs, status, access, power, and stuff. So if you're a leader in a certain badge or value, maybe you're able to be given a new job title, that's status, or a leader in your company mentions you in a newsletter, or you're given access to a certain type of conference, or you can use those rewards to redeem swag or concert tickets. And they can live right within Teams or Outlook, right? Or Chrome. And that's why we want to have that rewards catalog to be able to be opened within a couple of clicks. When you can redeem things that are international as well, when people go on trips to Europe or Asia, they can redeem a Visa card and use that anywhere in the world, or they can redeem something local in that currency, or most people honestly just redeem Amazon. And we have an Amazon integration too. So we have all of Amazon within our platform. And I have been mentioning swag. So, you want to tie in your swag to your recognition program. It's totally possible. If your recognition program doesn't already have swag as an option, it's a really cool way to have people get those sweatshirts or mugs. And you can also, with tools like Aximo, subsidize the cost. So you pay part of the cost and then the employee pays part of it. So instead of having to pay $50 for a sweatshirt, they could pay 20 of their points. But of course, it's really fun also to offer zero cost company perks. So you can offer things like paid time off, a vacation day, or a lunch with an executive team member. If parking spots is important to your organization, it's awesome doing the VIP parking spot. And also, as I mentioned, having concert tickets. So I think that's really cool one as well. Now let's talk a little bit about roster management, user management. Nobody in HR wants to spend your Friday afternoons uploading spreadsheets to update employee lists across a number of engagement program tools that don't have an HRIS sync. So because we're integrated into Microsoft natively, and we're also connected to dozens of HRIS systems, if you partner with a tool like Recognize, there's other ones out there that do this as well. A number of them, any company you work with has to integrate with your HRIS. If it doesn't, and you have to manage that manually, just give up. Don't do it. Beware. I think it's okay to start out that way, but you have a plan within a month that you don't have to run that manually. And also you want to get IT involved as soon as possible, so that they know it's on the docket here. It's something like Recognize. It's easy for HR and IT to get set up with. And then in the future, when a new hire or someone's promoted or there's an offboarding, then something like Recognize is updated automatically within a day or a week, right? Depending on how you use it. So this keeps your platform secure, clean, and you don't have to manage it as an HR team. I see Melinda asked a question. Let me go ahead and or comment. Okay, is there a way to bulk recognize for certain activities, like selecting 40 people who did volunteering? Yes. With our platform, we have a way to create a spreadsheet and then you upload it and we recognize everybody in the spreadsheet. It's as simple as that. Of course, you can always pick individual 40 people. That seems like it would take a long time. We also do groups. You can recognize entire teams or groups, locations, departments. So if a certain department did something like volunteer time, then you could recognize them for that. We do what's called a challenges system. So you can actually have people report that they've completed that volunteering, which just have them do it. And then their manager approves it. Like, they can approve each person who did the activity. You can upload a photo. You can do it from the mobile app. So you can, here's a picture of us volunteering and get approval. But yes, we do a spreadsheet upload to bulk recognize people. And because we have, Power Automate and Zapier, you can even have like an Excel spreadsheet or like a Google sheet. And then when you add people to the Google sheet, and then maybe a column says, completed, voluntary completed, then automatically we issue a volunteering badge to that employee. So that's another choice you could do. It's really not hard to set up, and we're more than happy to help you. Because when we found when we help our customers, they stay with us longer, right? If we just have our hands up, but we want to help you. We want to be on the phone with you. And that's how you should feel with all your vendors. If you have a vendor and their customer success team drags their feet on getting on the phone with you, or too many meetings go in a row where they don't have an answer for you. I mean, I had that with some of my vendors, and it drives me completely crazy. So don't put up with that kind of stuff. You're paying them; they work for you. But I want to talk a little bit, just very briefly, about surveys. I think we all know that the employee engagement surveys are lagging indicators. I've talked about this a lot. By the time we look at a report showing a department is unhappy, your top talent is already quiet quit. Recognized software gives you continuous people and spend analytics. You can track recognition frequency, monitor budget spending. You can see exactly which departments are highly engaged or which ones are lagging. So you can use this proactive data-driven insights to make better decisions and make better surveys. And this is the future of your tools. Everything's going to be connected into Claude, right? Claude connectors, just be able to ask questions, automatic dashboards. I know in another webinar, I know a lot of HR doesn't have great dashboards yet, but in the next 5-10 years, things are going to really change. Just a few examples here. LinkedIn saw a 96% retention rate amongst employees who received 4 or more value awards. At Eaton, recognized employees were 2 times less likely to quit. And then Denso recorded a 5% increase in overall employee engagement, and manager-employee relations scores within 60, an improvement of employee manager scores by 5% engagement as well. Just clear results to adding something like Recognize or employee recognition. But what we need to do again is remove friction, and participation goes up because managers are now involved, and then retention follows. So I want to touch on one other tip as well before I forget, which is if you can get your thought leaders in your company, your executive team, mentioning this to your managers and having it be part of the curriculum for being a manager, again, as social proof from leaders will then drive manager engagement too. But just to touch on how quickly and easily this could be, I know, with engagement programs, it can involve up to 18 months before someone picks a program. It can touch on a dozen people through engagement culture committees. But sometimes we just gotta realize that just let's just get started. Let's just try it. So much discussion can go on. Let's A/B test. Just pick a department, launch a recognition program that's embedded into Chrome, into Slack, into Teams, and do it with just one department. Do it with your IT department, right? And see what they find. Then they can add it themselves because they already have the tools to do it. They already are in Microsoft 365 admin panel, and it could take 4 hours to set up. So you can first just upload a spreadsheet or do the user sync with Microsoft or with your Workday or ADP or whatever you use. Add it to Teams, into Outlook, into SharePoint. Create some custom badges. We have a custom badge builder to create AI-generated badges, or you can use our library of over 100 badges or create your own badges. That is a step. And then decide if you want to have anniversaries or anything else around rewards. You don't have to start with rewards. You can use other ways to engage employees through gamification. Yes, if you add rewards, there'll be higher engagement. People want rewards. They want to be able to redeem things with their points. It creates meaning in the program, but it's actually not required to launch. So within 4 hours, I promise you, you can have a recognition program running. You can be running within your IT department. Do it for a month, do it for a quarter, see the difference. Do a pre-post survey on engagement.